Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be talking about my most recent obsession musically, that being Rush's album Clockwork Angels. I am absolutely obsessed with this album and have been listening to it non-stop for the past month and a half or so. So I really just wanted to put my thoughts out there and just talk about it because I haven't stopped listening to it. It's become a problem. It's the only thing I've been listening to, so I wanted to get my thoughts out there so I could, maybe move on for at least a little while. Because it seems to me with Rush, at least for myself, is that I have bursts of obsession, and it's not that like my liking of the band goes up and down, it's how much I quell my internal want to non-stop listen to their music. So it's like, oh, listen to Clockwork Angels a lot, and now hopefully in the next couple of weeks it'll be at a lower level, just because I want to broaden and listen to other music other than just Rush's 2012 album Clockwork Angels. And so in tradition of the regular album reviews on this channel, I'll be going over the background of this album first, and then into my musical analysis. And before we get into that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out a lot. Thank you. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about Clockwork Angels, Rush's 20th and final studio album, released in June of 2012. This is self-proclaimed their only concept album. Yes, people have made arguments on the internet and in articles for 40 years about that 2112 and Hemispheres are actually concept albums, but Rush themselves have not actually stated as such, so Clockwork Angels is actually their only concept album, which is pretty cool, and let me get into why I think it is so cool, because it is a story about a young man's quest in a lavish and colorful steampunk world in an attempt to follow his dreams. And that is a direct quote from Rush.com of what Neil has said this whole thing is all about. And it's absolutely fantastic. A little side note, there actually is a novelization done by Neil's friend Kevin J. Anderson, which I have been meaning to read because I love this album, and getting to have a story more in detail in an actual book, it just sounds amazing. It sounds right up my alley, so I'm gonna have to get it and read it, like now. So I'm probably gonna go on Amazon after this video and order it for myself. But as an overarching just kind of thought about this album, to me, this really seems like the perfect bookend of a 40-year career. Whether they meant it that way or not, to be like their final big project, studio album-wise, I don't know, but they ended on such a high. Yes, it makes me sad to say that we're never going to get new Rush music, obviously, for many, many reasons. But it makes me really sad. But it made me, content that it goes off on this such a high note, because there's so many bands that go on for too long and then they get tired and it's just not good. And then they got to the 2000s and it's like, why are you still here? But with Rush, it's like 40 years later and they're still producing masterpiece after masterpiece. Obviously, yes, you could write off my opinion and be like, oh, you're just a diehard Rush fan who will love them forever. Yes, that is true. But also just kind of analyzing them at a deeper level, it's crazy the amount, the meticulous detail they put into this album. It's just fantastic. And so that sums it up for the background of this, really. And let me get into the music, and it all kind of ties in hand with each other, just because it is a concept, and the whole thing is just a perfect story. This overarching theme of a journey is really portrayed really masterfully, not only through, obviously, the music, but the lyrics. I think the lyricism on this is some of the best that Neil has ever done. And let me give you a couple examples that I pulled up. From The Anarchist, a missing part of me that grows around me like a cage. Beautiful. And In the Garden, which I think this is one of, if not the best lyrics Neil has ever written. The future disappears into memory, with only a moment in between. Forever dwells within that moment. Hope is what remains to be seen. Who writes that in rock music? Like, what? And it's just the headiness of it and the philosophy behind it that you can really pick apart. I'm not going to in this video. I could do that in another video talking about my favorite Neil lyrics, but I'm just going to put that out there just to show you what kinds of things that are in this album and why I love it so much. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the fact that I liked it the first time I listened to it, but more aspects of the emotional roller coaster that was the music, it really hit me, finally. It really starts with an excitement in the beginning with Caravan, like, whoa, that track. I'll talk about that track in detail later, but jeez. And then going through, obviously, like, the classic, like, opening and climax and things like that. So it really hits every single stage of what it would take for you to go through a crazy sci-fi world to discover yourself within an album. It's insane. And as usual, the writing is just perfect. I remember watching a interview with Geddy Lee not too long ago, where he talked about how this is his favorite piece of work that Rush has ever worked on over 40 years. And I was like, at first it took me aback. I was like, really? After Hemispheres and Moving Pictures and all of these things, like, well, that's your favorite? But then looking into this more, it really makes sense. This is a culmination of what they have learned over 40 years. It's really them kind of being masters of their craft, doing a victory lap and taking us along for the journey. And it's really wonderful to see how this album really it is a culmination, because it takes the tonality that it learned in the 90s of kind of like a harder rock / metal type feel from like Counterparts in 93 onward, and then refining that while bringing in the complexity that they wrote back in their progressive rock days in the late 70s. So this is a culmination of everything that they've learned, and it's really beautiful to see. Now, in my notes here, I do have that I have a favorite song off of this album, but as I have been listening to what this album more and more, I don't have a favorite song. I don't think. In my notes, I say that I like Caravan the best. And yes, I absolutely adore this song. I think it is fantastic, and it is up there with some of my favorite Rush that has ever been released, ever. But then there's songs like BU2B, Headlong Flight, The Anarchist, and Seven Cities of Gold. And I'm like, I like them all almost equally. So as much as I could, if you were to pry me about it, I'd just say, yeah, the Caravan, or just Caravan. Caravan, fantastic. Maybe even the Anarchist or something. But, when I think about it, it's not as cut and dry as that, which is fantastic to be able to say and think about that. I don't really have a favorite because there's so much goodness in this piece of art. There was a couple other things that I wanted to touch on, those being that Geddy's voice on this album is absolutely fantastic. Yes, over the years, he's had lots of different phases of the way that he's been able to sing and the registers that he was singing in, but I think he really found his stride on this one. I think that everything else in the 2000s was fantastic as well, but here it really meshes with the feel of the rest of the album. This album has a grittiness to it, but not unhinged like it was on the original cut of Vapor Trails. That's kind of just like unhinged grit and angst, while this one really reins it in and keeps the masterful and complex writing that Rush is known for, while also keeping it's a perfect balance, really. I don't know how they do it. God knows I've tried myself to try and write music, but it's just looking at what they do, it's insane. And just all of these examples, as I said, the songs that were my favorites, like Caravan, it has just amazing melody lines. The guitar solo on that song is insane. BU2B, like the introduction where you hear the muffled Geddy lyrics over the really complex but really, I want to say topical, but that's not the word I'm looking for, but it really fits the tonality of the song. Headlong Flight, it just is a driving force of a song. It's so good, and there's so much that I want to say about each of these songs individually, but I don't want to waste your time with me talking for 55 minutes about each of these songs and each note and why they put a B flat over an E instead of a blah blah, So yeah, just in total, just a fantastic album. If you haven't listened to this, please, please, please do yourself a favor and check this out. It is fantastic. If you only know Rush from stuff that they did in the 70s, it is a big leap in change in music style, but I guarantee you that you'll love it. So be sure to give it a listen. I adore this album, as you have heard me talk about this whole time. So thank you so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me over the past month and a half or so. This channel's been growing insanely. Like, it's fantastic. So if you have any comments of things that you want me to talk about, I'm going to talk about more Rush. I have a bunch of Rush ideas in the old brain, so look forward to those. And, you know, anything else that kind of strikes my fancy, or, you know, another video like this where I am just obsessed about something and just need to talk about it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in whatever the heck happens next. Bye-bye.